name is Brian Kachejian, and I am the editor-in-chief of ClassicRockHistory.com. I'm real excited today because today we have here in the studio, via the magic of Zoom, I'm in New York, and I believe Malcolm Bruce is in London.
That's right.
So this is a New York to London video interview with Malcolm Bruce. And it's exciting to have you here today, Malcolm. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So we are here today to talk about something really special. And it's an album that Malcolm has coming out next month called Heavenly Creem, an acoustic tribute to Creem. And that tribute album to the band Creem is very special to Malcolm because Malcolm Bruce is the son of Jack Bruce, legendary bassist in the band Creem, songwriter and vocalist. So Malcolm, I can't wait to talk about this album here today that you have coming out.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about your musical career first. Did you always think you were going to be a musician, or when did it bite you?
Well, I think yes. What else was I going to be? I guess I grew up around all the musicians that my dad was working with when I was a kid, and I think from about the age of 8 or 9, I consciously knew that I was going to be a musician. I was starting to write music around that time. And my dad encouraged me, but he didn't sort of encourage me in the sense that he sort of said, you've got to do this. He just, as I kind of started to get into it, we would jam, we'd improvise together, we'd play music. And then he got me my first guitar, my first electric guitar. So I kind of started playing the bass, then I played the guitar, but I've always played the piano as well. And I studied classically and continued to do all of that. So yeah, from a very early age, I think it was ingrained in me. You know, if my dad had been a plumber, maybe I'd be a plumber. I don't know, man. I mean, this is the way it works, right? You kind of it's osmosis. Whatever you're around, it can be an influence, and I think it just kind of worked out in that way for me. So
yeah, I think with musicians, a lot of musicians who just make a living in music, it can be a struggle, and then when you have kids, you're worried about them going into that same business, that struggle. And I guess it's like with any business, if you're in a business that there's a struggle, you don't want your kids to struggle. That's something that as a father, you just don't want to happen. But of course, your father was a very successful artist. One of the
but I mean, it's but I think for me, it's kind of been a rocky road. And I'm still working on establishing myself. I've got, apart from this project, I've got my own, a new record coming out next year, and I'm going to be promoting that heavily. So I'm still working on a level of success that I want to attain, and it's not necessarily financial, it's more just kind of creative level of success.
Sure. Of course.
So yeah, I think you're right. I mean, and I think my dad did voice that because he knew that he'd been lucky, even though he was incredibly talented. There's a huge amount of luck in terms of success. There's connecting with the right people in an industry. There's not being screwed over. And I've had plenty of that in my life, like bad managers or whatever, people that promise you things that don't, there's all of that side, the negative side of the music business or the creative industries or any industry. So I think, but that's the point, whatever. If you play it safe in life, I'm not sure that's a good thing either, because that you might lack satisfaction. So, like sometimes in life to really find joy and satisfaction, we do have to take risks. And certainly the music business is a risky business.
I guess there's nothing worse than not following your heart, not following what you feel like you have to do inside.
Yeah, what's the cliche thing? It's better to have loved and lost than to not have loved at all, or something like that.
Right, better to have lost love than never have loved at all.
It's better to be completely broke as a guitar player throughout life and homeless, rather than work in the city. I don't know. I mean, there's risks in all aspects of life, and we're here to love. We're here to spread love. I sound like a hippie, but in a sense I am. I think what better purpose in life than to share positivity between ourselves and other people? And I think creativity is an opportunity to make that connection in a sort of profound way, I guess.
That's the soul of an artist, right? I mean,
Yeah,
why become an artist? I mean,
absolutely. We want to express something, and also to get into the moment. And I think I feel blessed to have my dad as my dad, in the sense that he was part of that tradition where music was allowing people to get into the moment. And Creem is a kind of iconic band for that reason, I believe. I mean, apart from the songs being well known, or some of the songs being really well known, they were great improvisers, and improvisation allows us to kind of fall into presence, or whatever. It's a sacred thing in a way. So
yeah, I mean, and that's the time period, the late 60s, the early 70s, where, I was just speaking with Don Brewer the other day of Grand Funk, and we were talking about how, when bands recorded, they went into the studio and they played live together at the same time. And
yes.
and especially when you're talking about like with Cream, where they were so progressive and they had mixed all those different elements of jazz and progressive rock, and it just kind of stretched out that creativity, which has always been there in the jazz world. They kind of brought it into the rock and roll world, and I
Yeah.
hear that on this album that we're going to talk about too. I hear that in your playing. I hear that all over the place. So now you were young. You said you were about 8 years old and you kind of got into music. Was that like in the 80s or the 70s? I don't know how old you are.
Ooh.
And I don't want to ask,
I'm
but
actually 463 years old, but I have a painting in the attic. No, so I kind of like late 70s was when I kind of decided I was going to definitely be a musician. So, but I was still very young. But I started playing. I think I was playing the piano at the age of 5. I would imagine around the age of 5 onwards, I've been playing the piano.
did you do
And
the
taking
traditional classical study or?
I still do every day. Yeah, I play Bach and Chopin and the classical repertoire. But I am also writing that contemporary classical music. I'm working on a couple of opera projects, and so I kind of have a wide interest in music. And every day is the beginning. Really, I think that's the great thing about being an artist, is that we have that opportunity to sort of be reborn every day and have that freshness. And it's a shame. I'm a bit sad for people that get kind of a bit jaded by the whole creative process, and then they sort of keep sort of just doing the same thing. And I think, art is a great opportunity to find that freshness, that fresh sense of things. So yeah, I mean, I'm just in that process. I feel very lucky to be able to explore that.
Yeah, I think when anybody, especially as a piano player, when you learn classical, I mean, you're trained the correct way, where you're learning, your inversions, you're learning your arpeggios, and when you gain that strength in your fingers and your hands, and then you want to go into rock and roll, it just opens up the whole world for you, where you can play what you hear.
Oh yes, and I mean it's an ongoing process. I mean, I'm looking at, there's rotation, there's, how the whole, you're not playing with your fingers. It's really a kind of one unit. So the forearm and the wrist and the hand and fingers. We tend to think of piano players as curling their fingers, but that's not really right either. There's all of these things that on a daily basis you're kind of exploring from a purely physical point of view. And then, of course, yes, you get into harmony and scales and arpeggios and inversions, as you say, and all of that kind of technical stuff. Um, it's beautiful. It's the language, it's the building blocks of language. And even just talking about tonality, there's just so many scales to explore. And then there's going beyond tonality, polytonality, there's atonality, and inventing, creating our own ways of doing things. It's people say, oh, it's all been done. I don't think anything's been done yet, really.
A lot we can do with 12 notes.
Oh yeah, and then you can start dividing those 12 notes if you're from Turkey, or or you're Kurdish, or then you've got like quarter tones. Even within a fretted instrument, you'll have quarter tones.
Of course, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, as a piano player, you only have what's there, unless you're
Yes.
one of those electronic keyboards where you can start, taking those half tones and dividing them up. But um, so yeah, I guess my point was, the more flexible you become, the more flexible that you can play, the more that you hear, you're able to reproduce it. Because I guess sometimes you hear things, and if you don't have the skill set to reproduce it, then that could be frustrating.
Yeah, and well, I think in the context of Cream and the context of my history and my father and everything, there's that balance between being able to reproduce something that's pretty much the same every time, and then there's freshness and the uniqueness of playing something, not being able to play it the same every time or ever. And I think that was something I've inherited from my dad, is like, why would we play at the same time two times in a row? Because it's music, it's an organism, it's alive, it's not dead, it's breathing. And that means that the breath, that everything is fresh in each moment. And I think that's, with Cream's music especially, when you start getting into those improvisational elements, you don't have to, you're never going to play at the same time, you're never going to sing at the same time with the same inflection, and that's the difference, right? I mean, and I think that that's something that they understood from the older blues tradition, that maybe we've lost a lot of those elements in the way that we play the blues tradition, and how that's influenced blues rock and modern rock and all of those things. It was never the same. Like the 12 bar is a 12 bar, but that's a lot of that early blues stuff didn't have 12 bars. You might have had 13, depending on how somebody felt. So it's wide open, and I think that's the beautiful thing. It's malleable to human intention. There's a lot in there to explore.
Now, do you consider yourself, I mean, you're a instrumentalist, you play a lot of different instruments. Is there one instrument that you say, yeah, well, I'm a piano player, or I'm a guitar player, or do you just consider yourself across the board a musician?
I think they're tools for expression. I don't know. I mean, I guess when my record comes out next year, I'd like to know what people think, because it's a guitar driven record. I'd like to know if people think, oh, this guy has an actual voice on the guitar. He has a personality in the same way that all the great guitar players like Eric Clapton or Jeff Beck or whoever, I mean, I'm not claiming to be on the same level as those amazing guys that did what they did, but they found a sound. They found their own, they found their own vibrato. I mean, I had a band. I was in a band with Leslie West about 12 years ago, and Corky Lang. And Leslie was another guy. He wasn't a technical player, but he had a thing.
Yeah.
He had a vibrato and a personality, a big personality.
And thing, that's it, right?
Yeah. So I mean, that's as you say, on the piano phrasing, how we attack the note, I suppose, but also phrasing can create a sound. So Thelonious Monk would be a good example. There are plenty of examples of on the piano, but not really in the same way as the guitar. And I think a stringed instrument where you can bend the strings and how you attack the string, and you have these two hands and the way they function, and the directness of the mind on that process. So I think the guitar can be, a kind of window to the soul in a way that other instruments are not.
Yeah, piano players, they don't have you can't, I mean, you can go something like where you can't bend the string, but you can definitely go, off, the slide, stuff like that.
Yes, and I mean, I've got one here. You probably can't see it, but I've got a similar thing to you. But if you're on a Bechstein or a Bosendorfer, and you've got the physicality of it, then yes, the way you're hitting it, the way you're tickling the note, as it were, will have an impact on the sound, the weight, the tone. So I mean, for me, I think I've got that on the guitar. I think it's taken many years to discover it, and I'm still discovering it. But I think I've got it on the bass guitar as well, inherited from my dad. And I think it's just that personality thing. But I'm humble about it because I have so much to learn, you know.
Well,
And
that's
I
what all
think,
great musicians say.
yeah, and I mean, I have it in my songwriting, and I've got 3 songs on this new record that I co-wrote with Pete Brown himself, who was the lyricist for Creem, who just passed away a few months ago, but who was one of the main forces behind Heavenly Cream that we're talking about. So I mean, I have a sound as a songwriter, but it's not. But I don't want to claim it's better than anyone else. It's just a completely subjective process of self-discovery. It's for other people to judge, and it doesn't really matter, because in 6 billion years, I'm not sure we might not even have humans anymore. We might have some weird artificially intelligent hybrid insect that doesn't exist in the time-space continuum, and so maybe they won't be thinking about any of this stuff. Maybe that's in like 20 years. I don't know.
I hope not. I hope not. I mean, listen, I remember being a kid and seeing 2001 Space Odyssey in 19, I guess it was 68 or when that came out, or 69, thinking, well, in 2001, this is what's going to be reality. Obviously, it's not reality. We're not on spaceships out there, and well, maybe we are a little bit, but
yeah, we're making inroads to all of that stuff. But that's thinking of reality in linear terms, and this is the thing, it's not really linear. It appears as linear, but it's not really that, because it's more holographic. Consciousness is all there is, and all of this is arising in consciousness. So if we want to go down that road, there, how much time you got?
yeah. You seem like someone that could just talk for hours and hours and hours about everything.
Yeah, I mean, I practice transcendental meditation. I don't know whether you know about that, but it's so we go right to the depth of our own self, which is the self that everyone shares, and it's the quantum field in quantum physics. So it's the field of pure potentiality, and that's where all creativity comes from, and including the manifestation of this universe and individuals and all of that. And so when we experience that, we realize that all is one, but creativity is accessed in that way. And so that's why people, maybe they take loads of drugs, so for a moment they kind of forget themselves and dip down into that level of themselves, but that's not sustainable. It's pretty toxic, so I find meditation a really, it's because it's effortless, so you sink into yourself, and then I guess it's similar to prayer in different traditions. You're communing with God or the divine or whatever. There's different ways of expressing it, right? So I think, to me, that has to be the primary part of the process of everything, because that funds or fuels every choice that's made in life, and including how we treat other people, how we expect to be treated ourselves, and what the purposes of this life. Is this purpose of this life to kind of hate and create division, or is it to transcend those divisions? And I mean, we have problems all over the world, right? I mean, in the US right now, and I love the US and the people. Spent many years working in the US, but I've got people that I love dearly who are hating people that I love dearly, because they happen to like Trump or hate Trump or love Biden or hate Biden. It's like, what are we doing, man? What is all this? It's kind of, I don't want to get into it, because it's not that I have an opinion, and I'm sure lots of these kinds of people do bad things, and maybe we should point it out, or maybe we shouldn't point it out, but there might be a different level to attack it from, where it just eradicates the negativity, and then everyone goes, oh, wait a minute, we don't need to do all of that stuff. We could actually focus on a much more loving, a loving experience, rather than, because it's like a karma, or it's the law of cause and effect, and I think all of us have experienced that even just in an interaction with our friends or our loved ones or whatever. If we listen, somebody feels listened to, and not judged, then they're much more likely to reciprocate that. And if we attack somebody or undermine them or don't respect them, they're much more likely to not respect us. And So I think, and again, with music, right? I mean, it's the same thing. When you're communicating with music, listening is everything. If we don't listen to each other, then we're not going to play in time. We're not going to respond, musically. We're going to respond unmusically, and that can function on so many different levels, from the subtle to the gross, just like everything in life. So,
well, I think the magic word you said there was listening. I mean, it's life is all about listening to each other. If we all listen to each other more, I think things would be a lot more peaceful. And I think music is the great connector. It's the universal language, right? It's the one language that's universal.
Yes,
we all can speak it and listen to it.
Yes.
I guess it's up to musicians to try and solve some problems like they tried doing in the 60s and into the 70s.
And I think it worked. I think it did have an impact. I was watching the Jimi Hendrix, is it the Maui concert? There's an amazing film of that, and it was just so powerful. It was such a powerful experience because it's just, well, because of him, I think, partly, but just a spiritual thing where it's just, it makes you stop and it makes you question, like, wait a minute, okay, so there's this other thing here, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I don't know anything. Like, and that's the thing, like, we're all, everyone in the world is going around, and confidence is a beautiful thing. I'm not saying confidence is a bad thing, but we can be confident at the same time as acknowledging that, there's we don't know anything.
I always say I'm smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough.
Yeah, but that makes you really smart.
I guess so. I guess so. So, all right, let's talk about this amazing record that you have coming out. It's called Heavenly Creem, an acoustic tribute to Creem. It's on Quattro Valley Records. Is that correct?
Quarto Valley Records. Yeah,
Quattro Valley Records.
That's head up by Bruce Quarto, who's the label boss.
All right, and there's a single that's out right now, which I listened to. You guys released "Sunshine of Your Love" as the opening single to the album.
Yes.
It's cool that people still releasing singles, I mean, that was always a big deal. But what a lineup you have just on this. Let's just talk about this single first.
Yeah, so it's so Ginger Baker on drums, his dear friend Abbas Dodu, who's a Ghanaian percussionist, master percussionist, who's a good friend of mine. He's an amazing guy and was very close with Ginger and in Ginger's band and all kinds of stuff. And then we have Neil Murray on bass, Neil Murray from Whitesnake. We have Bernie Marsden from Whitesnake on guitar. We have Joe Bonamassa on guitar and singing, and me on piano.
Yeah.
So I think that's the lineup for that song. Yeah,
that's what I have here, and I listened to it, and I just love the feel that you have on that recording.
That's Ginger. I mean, you can't argue with Ginger. I mean, he's like an orchestra within himself. I mean, he played so beautifully when he came in, and so that he set the tone, because it's just that masterfulness on that instrument, and his health was failing by that point. He'd had a heart operation, and he wasn't in great shape, but he wanted to come in and do it, and so he wasn't the Ginger of 1968, like the fiery kind of crazy physicality of it. It was a more refined Ginger, but I think he set the tone in that sense, the feel, the vibe.
Now, when did you record that? It must have been about 5 or 6 years ago, or?
Yeah, I think it was 2017.
Okay.
I think maybe the end of 2017. It's hard because this whole kind of post pandemic era thing has frazzled all of our timelines a little bit, which did contribute also to the record not coming out until now.
Now you make this great recording because it's a phenomenal song. I mean, of course, the song is phenomenal. It's a legendary song, but what you did with it is fantastic. And so you have this great recording, and you're sitting on it. How is that painful? Like you want the world to hear it, right? How painful is that?
Well, I mean, us musicians, we get involved with a lot of projects, and there's a lot of politics behind these things, and there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, so we had a guy called Mark Waters come in and shoot a documentary, a making of documentary. And so, we had a record, but we also had a film. And so we've got, the editing of that film and all the choices and decisions that have to be made alongside all of that. And then, it takes a while to have a strategy to release a record. And then I think as that was all coming together, we hit early 2020 and everyone's minds exploded. So
Tough time for musicians.
yeah, it was really tough,
I
man.
mean, if you were a working musician, it was
Well,
whatever level you're
yeah.
on.
I was touring in the States in another project and up until late 2019. And then, yes, I stopped. I haven't been back on the road on that level. I'm planning to next year, but yes, all of that changed. So yes, it was, I think there was a little bit of frustration and now, it's coming out and I'm really glad it's coming out and the label are fully behind it. And it's exciting because I think we want everyone to hear it. But we don't have, Ginger's not with us anymore. Pete Brown, the Creem lyricist, he just passed away. And Bernie Marsden just passed away as well. Bernie was a wonderful person, and he was very supportive of the project himself. And Wee Ellis, who's also on this record, the sax player from James Brown's band, but also was Ginger's friend and in Ginger's band, he passed away as well. So, I think there's still a few of us still alive, me being one of them. So
the music lives on, though, right?
I mean, but it's interesting because from that perspective, this record becomes almost like a historical document, of a lot of these people, the end of these people's careers. And it's certainly Ginger's final, I believe it's his final recording session that he ever did. And it was in Abbey Road, which is very fitting, possibly one of the great studios. So.
Was the whole record made in Abbey Road?
I believe it was. The majority was. I think we did a couple of sessions at another studio in London before moving to Abbey Road, just kind of initial sessions. So I think some of that might still be on the record. And Mo Foster just passed away, who you guys probably don't. I don't know whether you know about him.
Oh, I know him. Yeah, he's a legend.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously,
we're classic rock history, man.
Okay, so you know everything. You know more than me. I don't know anything. I told you I don't know.
Until you bring up the next name, I'm going to be like,
yeah. Well, Mo was a lovely, lovely guy, and obviously played with everyone from Jeff Beck to film scores and whatever. So yeah, he worked with everybody. And actually, there's going to be a nice tribute to Mo later this year that's being organized by Ray Russell, another amazing British musician. So yes, but I think that's the people that have left us, and the rest of us are still around. So we're going to push it. We're going to talk about the record, and we're proud of it. So
you should be proud of it. I mean, you have a spectacular lineup. Let's talk about some of the other people on the record. You have Deborah Bonham,
yes,
of John Bonham.
And indeed, yeah, she's amazing.
Amazing vocalist.
Great singer. Yeah. She's really happening. She's a lovely person. So she came in. Maggie Bell, another great female vocalist.
Legend.
Incredible singer. Stone the Crows, all of that stuff. A good Scottish singer. My Scottish accent's awful, but I am half Scottish. So there you go.
I remember first learning of Maggie Bell on an album called Midnight Flyer, which was released in the United States. And then I started discovering her because she was much bigger, I think, in the United Kingdom, Maggie, in the US. I mean, it's funny how there will be a lot of acts that'll break around the world, will be just as big in the US as they are in the UK, but then there's a lot of UK artists that people in the United States never heard of or don't know too much of. Like someone like John Miles. Like no one really knew John Miles here, but he's a monster star. He was a monster star in the UK.
But I think even in the pop world, like somebody like Robbie Williams,
Yeah, good
even
point.
though everybody knows about him, and he lived in LA for many years. I don't think he had that level of success. As a pop artist, I don't think. I mean, I guess Ed Sheeran is much better known in the US, but even Ed Sheeran, possibly, it's just slightly different.
Yeah, I think Robbie Williams is definitely a good example of that because I saw how big he was in the UK, and
Oh yeah.
he wasn't like that.
Well, they cut him like an $80 million record deal, like the biggest record deal that somebody at that time in the UK had ever achieved. So he must be making some money for somebody somewhere.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Um, you also have Clem Clempson on the
Clem
recording.
is a dear friend. Clem is amazing. Yeah, he's I've done quite a lot of things with him. But first met him when he was playing with my dad. He was in my dad's band for a while back in the 80s. They were good friends.
Because he played with Humble Pie, and then there was Coliseum.
Coliseum. He's still playing with Coliseum.
Yeah,
They're still touring around Europe mostly, like Germany, but they play in the UK as well.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
another band that's really big in the UK, but never was that big in the US. Uh,
Yes.
except for like progressive rock fans, progressive rock fans. There's that whole progressive rock scene in England. What do you call it? There's a certain town. I can't remember what it is that bands
Oh.
like Can came from and Caravan.
I think maybe you mean like down in the sort of southwest, like Canterbury. Do you mean Canterbury?
I mean, that's the word I was searching for. Can
Yeah, I mean there was
yeah,
when I first started working professionally, I worked for a couple of guys called Carl Jenkins and Mike Ratledge, and they were both in Soft Machine. But then they ended up going into doing commercials, and now Carl is Sir Carl Jenkins, and he wrote this huge kind of classical crossover piece called Adiamus that sold a lot, and he got knighted and all of that. But they came from that thing. I mean, super talented musicians that had come from a kind of more experimental background,
sure.
and there is a lot of that. I mean, you guys have, what do you guys have? You have like the kind of downtown New York kind of thing from
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot
John
of
Zorn, or there's
sure.
probably examples like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jersey bands, that never really made it big over in the UK. And there's always bands from any particular area in the world. You can have bands from
Yeah,
Australia or Canada, like the Tragically Hip was this huge band in Canada, and they never
yeah.
make it in the US. So
And Australia has an incredible history and legacy of music that I wouldn't be able to tell you about any of it. But whenever I hear it, I'm like, wow, and it's got a particular, very specific personality and flavor to the pop music and the rock music that they make.
you look at Jimmy Barnes, huge star over there, but nobody knew him here. So I mean,
All we knew was Neighbours, because when we were kids, we'd all run to the TV at lunchtime and watch these episodes of Neighbours with Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan. That was my introduction to Australia. I'm
yeah.
sorry to express it in cliche form, but it was true. That was our, we all fancied Kylie, basically.
Well, yeah. She made it big over here. She had some pretty big hits in the early 2000s.
Yeah, she's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
she's her recent single. I adored it. It was. I mean, she has that thing. She's great. I mean, she is, as a pure pop artist, she's fantastic and still doing it.
Now you've been to New York because I saw a video of you playing in the Iridium in New York City.
Yeah. I played
Yeah,
Iridium, the
you're
Cutting
amazing in it.
Room. Oh my God, I'm not sure
Yeah,
about that, but thank you. Yeah, I played. The last time I played was in, I think it was 2019 at Sony Hall,
yeah.
which I love. I love that venue. That they have this incredible like 3D sound system with a joystick on the soundboard. So they're kind of doing this thing where they can direct the sound of it in the room. It's a
Well,
great.
there's a lot of great venues in New York City. Did you like New York City?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time there. I've sublet apartments in the Village and got to know lots of people. People like Kip Hamrahan is a good friend, and John Cruth. I don't know whether you know who John Cruth is, but
No, no.
he's an interesting guy. He's a writer, a very successful. Writes books on music, iconic artists, but also is a accomplished musician who plays the sitar and a lot of kind of eclectic type instruments. But there's lots of great things going on in New York.
Yeah.
But I hear it's a bit of a mess right now. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the poverty and economics and the health stuff. I don't know, but maybe that's just a global issue.
Well, that's it. You hear things on the news. I mean, New York's a huge place.
Yeah.
The city is broken down into 5 boroughs.
Yes.
Manhattan, the Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island. And it's always been like that. People see things on TV and think it might be the whole thing. And of course, there's always bad stuff, but
it's similar to anywhere, I think. I mean, and there's Long Island. I spent some time on Long Island with Corky Lang. We were doing some writing together, and I love it. They're like up on the North Fork, and it's just
where in the North Fork? Do you remember where you were?
Green
Green
something.
Greenport.
Greenport. That's it.
Greenport.
Greenport. It's gorgeous. It's unique, and it's relaxed, and it's lovely. I mean, I love America, and the States. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Colorado and in Denver and Boulder, and I lived in San Francisco for a year. At one point, the end of the 90s, spent about a year up there working, doing different projects, and lived with my friends Piers and Sunita. And then David Allen stayed with us for 3 months while I was up there. So I got to know David.
Did you like Frisco?
Yeah.
People love San Francisco.
Yeah, it's great.
Great weather,
Yeah, and a lot of interesting creativity going on. Certainly 20 years ago when I was there, it was nice. Yeah. And LA, excuse me, I spent a lot of time in LA, and then more recently I was in Nashville or Franklin mostly. So there's that whole thing going on down there that's really, really interesting too.
You've been to all the big spots in the States. Those are
I mean, I've toured, and I've also toured. I've done like the whole country and up into Canada 2 or 3 times now, more than that, but like all of it 2 or 3 times, and then sort of an East Coast tour and blah blah blah. So yes, I mean, I've got to know it. I love it, and I want to come back.
Do you have a favorite place like for food? Like, is there a particular city you visited where you said, "Wow, the food is just amazing here"?
Oh, there's so much great food in the States. I mean, the last time I was in San Antonio, and I found that a little restaurant, that little river that runs around through the middle of the city. I think
in San Antonio.
I think I'm getting this. Am I getting it right? I could be getting it wrong. But down there, somewhere in Texas, I got some really nice food. But it's everywhere, Yeah, I'm vegan, so like it's been a little long time coming, but now I think with an awareness of whole foods and health, not Whole Foods the store, but Whole Foods, and how to cook with a good understanding of nutrition and plant-based. I think it's everywhere.
How about in London? Do you have any favorite places in London to eat?
I go to I go sometimes with my mom. I'll go to a local Turkish restaurant because I live not too far from my mom, so I see her quite regularly. And and we have a favorite like little Turkish restaurant, and the Turkish places here in London are great because they have a different ethic to they're not about grabbing money. They're really generous. They give you like, oh, here's some free salad and free bread and free this, and it's $10, and it's like, okay, well, we're coming back then, rather than it's like, here's a dried bit of something out of a freezer and that's $40, and I think that we could learn from, it's a cultural thing, these Turkish restaurants, they stay open till late at night, and they're very just matter of fact, but they're very accommodating and they don't overcharge you. And I think, hey, we've all got to make a living, but I love that, so So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
Turkish restaurant, but there's a couple of other places like there's one in Primrose Hill called Manor, which I used to really love, which is a vegan restaurant. And my latest discovery is a place called the Love Shack. And that's in Hackney, actually not too far from, I guess you've heard about the Rolling Stones new record, and they've called it Hackney Diamond. And they announced it at the Hackney Empire, which is an iconic old theater that we've all played out over the years. And so, yeah, not too far from that place where they all stood with Jimmy Kimmel or whoever it was they were standing with a few weeks ago.
That huge opening, yeah.
Yeah, so just down the road from there, there's this kind of semi-open air restaurant called the Love Shack, which sells vegan food and also sells coffee with lion's mane mushroom in it. And if you haven't tried that, man, so we have these like 7 super mushrooms that have all these medicinal properties, and one of them, so you have like cordyceps and chaga and all these different kind of mushrooms that have different properties. But lion's mane looks like lion's mane. So it looks like a lion's mane, and it grows on hardwood. So it's very easy to grow. And it just has, like, it regrows the synapses in your brain. It's a natural antidepressant, and it's incredible. So a lot of people have it in coffee, and it changes your life. So there you go.
There you go. I mean, we're not just learning about new music, we're learning about health.
Forget the music, man. Just have mushrooms in your tea.
You're changing lives here. You may be saving lives.
Oh my goodness. I mean, yes, it'd be nice if everyone just drank lion's mane mushroom tea and stopped hurting each other. There you go.
Maybe there sounds like there's a song there.
Yeah, about lion's mane. Yeah. No, I mean, it's actually really good for creativity because, as I say, it sort of brings clarity in the brain. It's a bit like, I don't know, ginkgo biloba, which everyone's been using for many years, which ginkgo increases circulation, so it just increases blood circulation into the brain, which gives you better recall. And there are all these very, very natural things that perhaps the pharmaceutical industry and corporations are not so hot on. But at the same time, I think a lot of those things they're now realizing actually that we can make money by promoting these healthy things. And so I think that's the way to go for the corporations. Stop making like denatured, ultra processed crap and pushing it through marketing. Take the really, really healthy stuff and market it and profit from it. Then I don't have a problem with that. I'm not anti-capitalist in that sense, but I think we've gone too far in terms of hurting people's health with all this kind of denatured stuff. So yeah, if you've got the option, go natural.
Go natural. Find some
lion's mane mushroom.
All right, I don't want to hold you up too long here, but let's just make sure we get some dates here. So the album is coming out, what, November 3rd?
Album's coming out November 3rd. I believe the film is being distributed as well, possibly before that, but certainly by then as well, alongside that.
Is it a theatrical release or is it being streamed?
I'm not sure of the details. I think they're still working on distribution, but I believe it'll be streamed, and they'll probably find a way to, maybe a more kind of national distribution. I'm not sure. It's the whole watching TV thing has gone crazy, right? Globally, like it's all a mixture of online stuff and do people even watch TV anymore? I don't know.
Well, the younger people do. I mean look at the success of the Queen movie.
Yeah, it was great.
You talk to 12-year-old kids, they know who Queen is, because of that movie. And so you get something like that out, on Netflix or Hulu or all the other different streaming channels, and kids do watch. I think kids do watch a lot of TV. They watch it on their phones. I don't know how they see it, but
well, I guess Netflix and things like that. That's probably Apple TV and whatever. So yeah, I would imagine this will come out. It's I haven't actually seen it. I've seen clips of it, but it's a funny thing. It's like you not wanting to look at your own photograph or something. But I hear it's wonderful and it's moving, and there are it's some great footage of the songs being recorded the actual songs being recorded, but also interviews and fly on the wall stuff. And so I probably will watch it at some point. Is there anything else you want to know about the record? Anybody?
So there's 15 songs on the album. You
Yeah.
also have Paul Rodgers sings on one of the songs, or one
Yes.
or just I think he sings on
think
one.
he's doing. I think he's doing Bad Sign, Born Under a Bad Sign. As far as I remember, that was the song that he. Yeah, Paul's amazing. And actually, I do know his kids, Steve and Jasmine, a little bit as well. They're well, Jasmine's London based, so I've shared the stage with them a little bit over the years. So yeah, Paul, Bobby Rush is doing some stuff. Who's wonderful.
Are you going to be on the road? Are you going to be on the road promoting the album? Are you going to be doing shows?
I guess it's up. I guess it's up to the label. I think they're probably thinking all of that stuff through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we could put something wonderful together and do some showcases for it around the release date. I think that would be a good idea. But we'll see.
Well, I hope you do, and I hope you come to the States. I'd love to come see you play some of these tunes. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
The way the album opens up, your piano playing on the first track, it's just phenomenal. There's a groove to it. It's a really enjoyable album. I listened to it a few times, and I enjoyed the soulfulness of it, and you could feel the love. I mean, just speaking with you now for the past 45 minutes, your personality comes out on that music, and you're spreading love. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean that's what I hope to do with my own music projects. But also it's hard to describe really, because of the people that were involved. Pete Brown, who I've known since before I was born. I was talking to he just passed away a couple of months ago, very sadly, but he had an amazing life. He was in his early 80s, so it's not like he didn't live an incredible full life. And he's one of these people that lived on his own terms. He never had to get a day job. He was a poet, one of the kind of British beat poets, and worked with, Ginsberg in the very early 60s when Ginsberg went over to London and kind of was a kind of, beatnik type guy that sort of lucked out because he kind of met Ginger first, I think. And then he tried to write with Ginger in the early days of Creem, and it didn't work out. So then he worked with my dad, and suddenly they found this rhythm of songs. And so Pete had this amazing life, and he's integral to this project. He's the one that really made the project happen, and from its inception. So his heart and soul is in this, and I think it's there is this kind of family, this extended family of all of us that love music, and that understand the importance of the whole thing and the history. And as I say, when we're artificially intelligent insects, they might not care so much, but right now there's a beautiful thing in there somewhere.
It's a family and friend affair. I mean, that's what the album is. It's your friends and family all coming together to pay tribute to your dad and the band Creem. And it's I think it's wonderful, and I hope younger people hear it and they get turned on to that music, and they get turned on to who you are and follow your career as you continue on in the music business. I wish you the best of luck, Malcolm.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you so much.
You're a soulful, spirited guy, and I look forward to hearing more from you. So
thank you.
Thanks for sharing your life and your world and all those cool health pointers. Pretty inspirational.
Try it, man. Try it. Lion's mane mushroom.
Lion's mane mushroom. I want to hear a song. You got to do one, man.
Okay, I'll make a note of it.
Yeah,
I'll work.
All right, Malcolm. Well, thank you very much for being with ClassicRockHistory.com here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
I had a good time. All right, I'll see you next time.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Bye.